All right, and welcome back to episode 85 of the Nerd Cantina show. And man, the world is still burning. Still a lot of craziness going on, and I've been stuck at home.
I actually got out and went golfing yesterday. That was a great time. It was like 74, not a cloud in the sky, light breeze, just shooting the links. It was quite enjoyable. Although COVID, of course, has to creep into your life at all points, and like you could see the grounds guys, the guys that yell at you for slow play and everything, they were out in full force yesterday. And like the second hole, we go to putt, and I pull the flag, and like,
oh, don't you dare touch it!
Oh, don't you touch that fucking flag! Don't you touch it! Like, he was like, you can't pull the flag. I was like, we can't pull the flag when we putt. Like, I was like, doesn't that affect putting? He's like, yeah, it's COVID rules. We don't want anybody touching the flag. I was like, we out in the sun, man. Like I can't touch the flag.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
I lied when I said I've been stuck at home. I also went golfing, and they have pool noodles around.
Pool noodles. They had pool noodles around ours too.
Yeah, pool noodles around the pin in the cup, so that way the ball doesn't sink to the bottom of the cup, and you can just pick it up. It's weird, but
yeah,
yep,
like
seems to be the standard.
I cannot wait till this shit is over, man.
It'll never be over.
It's just at the point now where like we really hit COVID hard in the beginning, and now it seems like it's just like that nagging thing over your shoulder that's just like, yeah, pool noodle, don't touch it. Oh, you forgot your mask in the car, go back to the car.
Yeah, it is just this weird new normal, you know. I think that's the term that everybody's supposed to talk about, is the new normal. Yeah, the fact that like I don't know how many times I've left my house, gotten 5 minutes away, and it was just like, son of a bitch, don't have a mask. I can't go anywhere. And I have to turn around and go get a mask. And I should just conform and get a bunch of masks that I keep in my car.
I have one in every car. That almost happened to us the other night when we went out to dinner. I thought, like, he was like, you got to have masks to walk through the restaurant. I was like, oh, shit. And Kristen was like, she had two in her car, thank God. Because I was like, how are we going to do this? Like, you going to walk through? Hand him the mask. He's going to come back out, give me the mask. Like, it's just, yeah, it's this, like, nagging inconvenience now. And, like, of course, there's going to be people that hear this and be like, you're going to complain about this inconvenience to save millions of lives? Like, check your privilege, bro. I'm going to complain. I'm going to complain. This is bullshit.
I'm still doing it, but I'm going to complain. It's miserable. I don't want to wear a mask on my face. And yeah, I went to a restaurant, and same thing. You know, you had to have a mask come in. And I was wondering, like, I don't know, there's got to be money to be made in the sense, like, why do these restaurants not have their own, like, little piece of cloth with their, you know, these restaurants are selling their own T-shirts. Why aren't they selling their own masks at this point in time?
That's what I'm saying, man.
Why are you not?
Put the restaurant logo on it.
Yeah, like, that's it. I'm going to go, after this episode here, I'm going to go run around the town and start, I'm going to sign up some vendors.
Get a vinyl printer and buy masks in bulk.
All right. I guess we can talk about news. Let's get started on some streaming services here, streaming news.
Yes, so one of the movies that was set to release that went straight to digital release this week, and that was Disney's Artemis Fowl, and they made a good choice. They made a good choice. You know, I seen it came out. I asked my 6-year-old if she wanted to do a movie night in the house again, you know, so we popped some popcorn, and, you know, she likes to have a movie night every once in a while with daddy. So we sat and we watched it, and man, just trash.
Is it like intended for kids trash, like Spy Kids, like those garbage movies that some kids find funny? Yeah,
it felt like Spy Kids putting in effort. And that's what made it like almost hard to watch, is because like you watch a Spy Kids and you know what a Spy Kids is, you know, like it's you just take it for what it is. But this is like, like when one of your friends thinks they're really good at something and then they do it for you in front of you, like, oh, bro, I could really draw. Like I'm pretty good drawer. And then they draw you a picture and you're just like, ew, like, and you don't know what to say to them. Like that is Artemis Fowl. Like Disney was like, hey, we can make a good movie, put it out. And you're just like, oh, sorry. No, it's not. It's not good. Like, It kind of fell flat. It never really got you hooked into any of the characters. It just kind of hit the main story running without any building. Like, it felt like it was like the third movie in a trilogy, but they started with it. So you just go in and you feel lost right away. Wasn't a fan. Wasn't a fan at all.
I've got a lot on my list to watch. Artemis Fowl is not one of them.
Scratch it off.
So,
scratch it off.
So thanks for that PSA there to steer clear from it. There was some other news of what's going to Disney Plus now. Another movie, the one and only Ivan, which was really the 2020's only animated film coming out of Disney Studios this year, and that's now been announced that it's going straight to Disney Plus. They're pulling that from the theatrical release. So we're seeing more go the way of especially Disney using just Disney Plus as their platform and pulling things. There was that Pete Davidson movie that we released on premium video on demand this week. It's another like Universal movie that was supposed to have a theatrical release, and they just canceled the theatrical release. I don't know why people. It's weird that the headlines are all against like Universal and their decisions, but Disney's been doing it, all over the place.
Well, and you got that Tom Hanks movie getting bought out by Apple Plus, going like the landscape's changing. It's gonna be interesting. I'm looking forward to when like Tenet for sure is going to be the first test. Like it's going to be it's already getting a B in that test at best, right? Because they announced this week that they delayed Tenet and Wonder Woman, and I get they only pushed it back 2 weeks. Yeah, they only pushed it back 2 weeks, and I think that it was just to give theaters enough time to get their staff up and running, get the building. You know what I mean? Like, just they want theaters fully operational and running under their new rules when that releases. They don't want, any kind of hiccups.
Yeah, sure. 2 weeks is going to do the job on that. I
just listened to the Joe Rogan podcast where he had a couple restaurateurs on there, and they were saying how like they got no word that they were allowed to reopen, and they lifted up the COVID ban on them, but they couldn't open that day because they needed literally like 2 weeks to restaff, to restock, like all that. So I think Tenet was set to release the day like AMC said they were going to open again, and they were just like, oh, we're going to give you some time to work out the kinks before we have a shitty opening weekend.
Yeah, I'm still not confident that we're not heading towards another kind of slowdown in the phase reopens or whatever else, especially when we talk about like these areas of big concern or like theaters and concerts and all that stuff. So I guess it gives them a little breathing room if they're operating under the assumption that everything's going to open back up. That gives them a little breathing room. I'm starting to
operate under the assumption that if I just wear a Black Lives Matter t-shirt, I could walk into anywhere I want with any size crowd and do whatever the fuck I please. So I just don't understand why we're even like really worried about the minor details at this point. If they're putting any kind of restrictions in, it's way better than what is going on in public every fucking day for the last 2 fucking weeks.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there is obviously weird messaging or weird when it comes to the COVID stuff.
I mean, you have on the news, they're saying no social gatherings over 12 people, protests in groups of 100. What the fuck is the difference between my barbecue and your public protest? Like zero. Fucking zero.
When it comes to public health, zero. I agree. When it comes to enforcing these COVID rules against constitutional rights, doesn't stand up. You're going to lose a lot of lawsuits that way. So it's not a public health decision that allowed the protest. It's a constitutional decision.
Sounds to me a lot like privilege.
Dude.
Send your hate mail to steve@thenerdcantina.com. Another funny story in entertainment that I saw is, Animal Crossings is become the wide popular game in Nintendo Switch. They have their favorite titles, and Animal Crossing seems to be the head title right now. There's all kinds of groups formed about it. And Nintendo just had to release a statement saying that selling Animal Crossing items in real life for actual money is violating the terms of service, and they're going to have to start cracking down on accounts that are using Animal Crossing in our real life economy, which cracks me up because this has always been a World of Warcraft issue.
Yeah.
So all our Warcrafters out there, in old school, like dating my age now, EverQuest fans, like this has always been a thing. You get an item, you got gold, like let's hustle. There's lazy people out there that don't want to work for their shit. There's unlucky people that don't get good drop rolls, and people are willing to have expendable income and then willing to spend real life money on it. And I just love when these software companies like feel like they deserve that money. So when they're not getting that money, they want to shut it down. Like, shouldn't you just be glad that tons of people are playing this game so much to where it is created like this mini economy based around your game? Doesn't that keep your game vibrant? And, but no, they look at it as like, well, we could just be doing microtransactions for these things and we could be getting that money. Fuck you people. Like, no, man, let gamers be gamers. Let people have their fun.
Yeah. I think these things are always weird to me. I didn't do the World of Warcraft stuff. So the whole fact that people are paying, real money for the stuff, but I don't know what level of time commitment it costs. And I guess it just sometimes makes sense. Like, yeah, if you've got the money, why waste hours in order to get to the next whatever thing you want when you could just buy your way to it? Who the hell cares?
Well, and some people just have really good drop rates. So there's like really hard, you get these DIY recipes so you can make furniture and make all this other stuff. Some of them have like a really shitty drop rate. And if somebody already has it and they get a second one, they're just supposed to give it away?
Yeah, have
that thing's
friends.
Got value. That thing's got value. You know what I'm saying? Like make that money. I ain't hating on nobody out there trying to hustle, especially in the Animal Crossing islands. It's one of those games that really is borderline pointless. It's like The Sims. It's addictive in the sense that you can create your own like world, and you start seeing other people's islands, and you see the way people are designing their houses and stuff like this. And you're like, man, I'm really shitty. And it just gives you that drive to step up your Animal Crossing game. It's a really weird addiction. So I feel like the Warcrafter in me says, sell that shit. Sell that fucking shit, man. Sell that shit.
All right, well, I guess some more when we talk about entertainment nonsense is HBO's changing their name again.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is, so they're now rebranding their names where it's just going to be, instead of, now it's HBO Now, HBO Go, HBO Max, and then HBO for the cable providers. And then now they're changing it to where it's just going to be HBO, just the HBO app, and HBO Max. And those are the two services. And eventually they're going to try to probably roll it all under one. The only difference between HBO and HBO Max is apparently if your cable provider doesn't have a contract with HBO Max, you don't get access to it just by having an HBO subscription. So then you're stuck with just HBO, and everybody else will automatically get HBO Max if you own HBO and your cable provider doesn't suck. So what took HBO so long? Like, did it really take a bad start to realize that for 12 months, knowing that this was coming out, everybody's been talking about the fact that we have no idea what the difference between these services are, what the hell they mean. Like, we've talked about it several different times and tried to explain away what these purposes
Go,
are.
HBO Now, HBO Max, just regular HBO.
Who gets what? And it was a terrible mess in the first place. And now they're trying to rebrand it to make it easier to understand because it's been confusing to people, and it's been probably negatively impacting their launch of HBO Max from last week or last month. I guess I just don't understand, like, who is in your marketing department that didn't know that this was a problem?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't look at HBO Max as a failure either. Like, I use it, like I said, my daughter watches that Elmo show. I like having, because there's great HBO content. So I like having a separate app for HBO. I don't want to have to go through my Hulu into the HBO channel and then search to find all the shows I want. You get to set your own, like, my list, and it saves what episode you were on just specifically for your HBO. So, like, I'm trying to pound through all the Veeps. I never really got into Veep, and I needed a comedy half-hour show just to kill time every once in a while. So
Isn't there enough political comedy in real life? Like, do we...
So this is a little dated, so it kind of brings you back to the nostalgia of when this was political comedy. Like it brings you back to the days like, oh, I remember when this was a joke and not real life. So, but I like how it has its own, segments. So, like, I don't have to, it's not jumbled in like everything else on my Hulu. I just go to HBO Max, the 4 shows I'm watching right there in my list, or continue watching right out on the left episode. I can create the my list of the stuff I want to watch. I like having that app, so it is their fault for the mass confusion for a lot of people. But once you get through that confusion, I don't see it being an unsuccessful branch of HBO.
No, I don't have the app, but I mean, it sounds like the content and stuff is good. It's just the branding of it was bad, and that's why it's just weird that they allowed this to become an issue in the first place.
Well, yeah, and we talked about it multiple times. I think a lot of times people just forget how inept the average American is, to put it nicely. Like, I honestly think that a lot of these boardrooms in eggheads, they just forget how just out of touch and the lack of common sense that many Americans have.
I won't understand it, but I guess we can move on to another great marketing tool and discuss this PlayStation 5 reveal.
Yeah. The idea people had in their head of what it was going to look like was way off than what it actually looks like. And the memes, like, the internet has no chill. Like, the second that stream took place, they had them in the chamber, man. They had them ready to fire, and the memes have been great. I personally don't hate the design. It's interesting. Both these machines are huge. The day of you just sliding your gaming console into like that entertainment shelf on your
my 2004 entertainment center is not going to stand up to these new consoles here.
But I love it that when Xbox went white, the PlayStation people were all in arms about it and making fun of Xbox, and now all the Xboxes are black, and now PlayStation comes out with a white console, and like it's so reciprocal, these things, you know what I mean? Like it's just so funny to me. But the internet has no chill, and you gotta love it.
I think, like you said, the biggest reveal of this whole event or whatever else was just the view of it, the look of it. I don't think any of the specs, any of the stuff that they talk about was news at this point. And I don't know.
No, it's just now it's all official. There was a lot of speculation, and most of the speculation was pretty fucking accurate. So now it's just everything's official. We're just waiting on the pricing for both these and when we can start pre-orders. So that'll be the next big kind of news that we're waiting on. You get the announcement of the Miles Morales Spider-Man game sequel, and then they're pulling back and saying, well, it's not a true sequel, and who knows what what the details of that are going to be. There was some other, gaming news weaved into that press conference, but we really don't have time on our show to dive deep into it. So basically, go to the nerdcantina.com/community, check out all the fire memes, and then watch
just check out the memes. I don't think there's really much real talk going on with but there's great memes happening regarding the
and you can go back and watch the stream on YouTube. It was actually set the record for the most watched live stream in internet history now.
Really?
Yep. I don't know the exact number of people that watched it live, but it was basically the Super Bowl of live streams up to this point.
Interesting. All right. Well, I was not aware of that. I mean, I knew it was going to be a fairly big event, especially, they gave themselves more time to breathe and get some publicity when they pushed back due to all the protests and everything else that was taking place the week prior. So, but I didn't realize that they had some level of success there. I guess we can move out of entertainment. We've got a healthy amount of tech stuff to talk about. And the first tech news, I guess we can talk about, we can just throw it back to, I think it was 2 weeks ago. We talked about how Starlink internet was not deemed broadband capable or broadband classification. So the FCC is giving out grants to broadband companies in order to expand it out to rural areas and everything else. And the FCC told Elon Musk that, hey, Starlink's not qualifying for any of these grants, any of this money and programs for rural internet because you're not fast enough, your latency is not good enough. You're considered in the same realm as like satellite, DirecTV, Dish Networks level
and Elon
internet.
Basically said, "Bitch, quit playing."
Yeah, essentially.
Bitch,
and Elon
playing.
wins. Ajit Pai this week ends up caving into SpaceX claims of their internet speed, saying that we think that you're overstating your internet capabilities. We are going to classify you as broadband internet from this point on, and I have opened them up to a different classification by the FCC, which is opening them up to grants and allowing them to advertise themselves as a broadband company.
I wonder how much of this had to do with the fact that, like, you want to keep putting humans in the tips of our rockets? Shut the fuck up. You need to stop biting the hand, motherfuckers.
Yeah, I don't know how much these interagency things care. Maybe they do. Maybe they talk. Maybe they help. But I think
cost of the space Uber just quadrupled after Ajit talking some shit.
I just think that Elon can strong arm a lot of people, and Ajit Pai really doesn't stand a chance against the claims. And not to mention, I imagine
I didn't think the claims were valid anyways.
No, I didn't think so either. And I think it was probably pretty easy for Elon to show that they launched another 58 satellites this weekend. So they're now sitting in the realm. I want to say it's around 600 satellites now. And the satellites that they do have they're the speeds that they're testing at is beating a lot of just local broadband companies as far as the speeds provided in tests. And I get it, it's not rolled out to scale yet, but still, like the numbers show, all right, dude, like we're meeting your speed requirements and latency requirements. It was a foolish ruling in the first place. Yeah,
I just. When we first did this story, I was like, bro, this isn't a fight you want to pick. This is not a fight you want to pick.
Yeah, I don't know. Ajit Pai it's weird with that, the fact that we know his name is weird. He seems to...
Well, with the amount of control the FCC has over tech and the things that interest us, I mean, people should know his name. Like, I just... It's not his name that we should know. It's somebody that actually knows a little bit more about tech and gives a shit about consumers' name that we should know.
Yeah. I don't know, but in the end, I think this was a good ruling. It was a ruling that we kind of predicted that it was going to go this way a couple weeks ago. So follow-up completed here. And I guess we can move on to more recent news. And this week, there has been a ton on facial recognition coming out. So I think the first company that made a statement about it took place about a week ago today, and that was IBM came out saying that they're no longer going to use general purpose facial recognition software or develop it or share it with other agencies. And IBM was the first one to come out. But then since then, Amazon, which interesting that Amazon has facial recognition software and that they're driving significant, like this is an arm of
all their warehouses. All their warehouses have tons of facial recognition, and they know exactly how long Brenda is taking her bathroom breaks. These are numbers that they're quantifying. Like I have not a doubt in my mind that they have some kind of crazy program in all of these warehouses across the country. Not a doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's all kinds of crazy stuff that they're using, but the fact that they were using this to as a selling it to other agencies and selling it to, I guess I would have never linked in my mind. I should just link Amazon with everything that's going on in the world at this point in time. But that's not the arm of, when we look at Amazon as a tech company, what I thought they were doing.
Well, the fact that you have multiple companies now coming out and saying that they're not on the side of facial recognition doesn't lead me to believe that this is some altruistic kind of like endeavor. This leads me to believe that in the next month or two, some crazy fucking story is going to drop about facial recognition. We're going to get some like Snowden level information about facial recognition, and then any company that is tied to this facial recognition is just going to turn into the biggest fucking bad guy in the public eye.
Yeah, so all of this happens at the same time. I think it's just bad PR for these companies right now to be a part of facial recognition. I think lawsuits are on their way, and they're trying to close up shop and stop sharing their software. I never think that these companies are doing it because they're just in the best interest of, privacy of individuals or whatever else. Like, that is not what drives these decisions. It is some level of liability or monetary reason why they're doing it. This week, we also had some House of Representatives, I think it was like 35 of them, that have put together a bill asking the FBI to stop using various tools to spy on protesters during all this protesting stuff, facial recognition being a part of it. So I think right now we're seeing that, like, this in this realm of all these protests taking place in the last week and 2 weeks, people being very concerned about how we're scraping this data, how we're using this data. And I think that this was Amazon, IBM, Google, all these companies getting out ahead of it, saying, okay, we're not going to allow anybody to use our software. But I think the lawsuits are coming, and I think that's the big issue.
Well, we've been blowing the horn on facial recognition technology pretty much since day one. We've covered these stories because I think both of us recognize the 1984 level of intrusion that facial recognition is going to put out into the world. And we recorded this show on Monday morning. Last night, John Oliver on last week tonight, did his main story, 15, 20 minutes segment on facial recognition, and mentioned a lot of the companies we have talked about, a lot of the people, a lot of the problems that we have talked about on this show. Thanks, John, for taking everything we do and putting it into a nice YouTube video so nobody will give a shit about what we say. But yeah, he did a great piece on it, and it really just confirmed all our fears and what we've been putting into our audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I was glad that he did it. Just like most of their segments are pretty well researched, and he showed a lot of the issues with Clearview and what Clearview is scraping from everybody and using, that law enforcement is gaining access to those things. There's huge concerns around what the government's, what everybody's capable of doing. And yes, regular companies can use some of these software, but the realm that law enforcement can use it just needs to be addressed now. And that's the part of the problem. Even I listened to Cory Doctorow, who we've had on the podcast twice, who I find fascinating and very involved in speaking out against things like this. I listened to him on another podcast this week, and he was just talking about the major concerns that are going with all of this technology, and it's not just facial recognition. There's a lot of tools in the toolbox for digital surveillance that law enforcement believes they have the right to use. The problem is the legislation hasn't really looked at how to make this possible, right? The fact that technology being used by law enforcement, it's going to continue to happen. How do we regulate it so that way it's done in a way that still protects the rights of the citizens? Right now, it's just kind of a free-for-all. They can use these things. Local law enforcement can sign a contract with Clearview AI and gain access to all these images and use it how they see fit. No warrants needed, no nothing needed. And it just comes down to how do we regulate this now before it becomes just the norm.
In the interview he did with they showed with the Clearview AI owner was to me one of the most scariest parts, is because like this dude has the attitude of like, one, I'm not doing anything wrong. If you put up a picture of yourself on a public forum and I take that image, it's my right. Like, you put it up in the public, I can own as many copies of your face as you're willing to put out there.
And if your friend took a picture of you and put it up there, it's my right.
It's my
your
right.
face is also my right again.
Yeah. And when they pitched to him like the dangers of facial recognition, his attitude was like, well, that's why you should be glad I'm doing it, because I'm the nice guy. Like, you don't want all these other guys doing facial recognition because they'll do bad stuff. But me, I'm going to do good stuff. So don't worry about me. Just let me do what I'm going to do. And it's like, man, that's the most evil response I think I've ever heard.
Right. And it's like, a guy like that, it's like, really, you just made a First Amendment claim to all of our data. You literally opened the door for anybody to do this if you were allowed to continue. So you can't make the claim that, oh, it's good that I'm doing it. Because you're making the claim that everybody has a right to do this.
And when they put that reporter's face in the facial recognition and it pulled up some like photo from when he was in college on a newspaper article back in like the day, and he was just like in the background of it, like the look on his face and the look on the Clearview guy's face was just so telling, because the reporter had sheer terror on his face, and the guy from Clearview had just like this shit-eating grin, nodding his head like, pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. And the guy's just like, bro, that's fucked up.
I was 16 years old there. I'm a grown ass man, and now you found pictures of me when I was 16.
It was insane.
It's a really weird kind of piece of technology that I'm just concerned with us finding a conversation and regulation for it now, and on what's the ethical use and everything else, because the truth is it's going to continue to exist. We cannot wish this away. The technology will not disappear.
And what they talk about too is how it connects to multiple data points too, because then once they have your face, they tie it to your car, they tie it to your Facebook page, they tie it to your LinkedIn, they tie it to your social security, like the government. It's another huge data point for just profiling you and tracking your activity and predicting your future activity.
Right. Like, and even if it was just knowing the ethical use on when this software can be used to scan and track and whatever else, it has to be addressed, because even if we regulate away and say that they can't scrape our data off of Facebook like Clearview is doing, and they don't have a First Amendment right to my Facebook profile or my public profiles or whatever it happens to be, and that somehow becomes illegal, there's nothing to say that in order to get a driver's license, you now need a 360-degree head scan, right? Now it's just a front-facing picture. But what happens when you go get your driver's license renewed and they tell you, no, we're going to take it from 7 different angles? And there's nothing that stops it, right?
They got the matrix cameras set up around your head.
Your only recourse is to say that, oh, no, I don't want a government-provided ID. If they tell you that that's not required to get an ID, which realistically, again, this is tinfoil hat stuff, but that would be a pretty easy change.
Is it really tinfoil hat, though? I think we're paper bagging it at this point.
It'd be a pretty easy change for federal agencies, government agencies, state bodies, whatever else, to say that, hey, we want multiple images for IDs, and then that becomes a part of their database that they can easily pull from and gain pretty decent accuracy on these facial recognition software. So the the concern is not the fact that, okay, well, how do we stop Clearview? Because we're not going to stop Clearview. We're not going to stop the next one from developing software that's capable of doing this. It just comes down to what level should the government be capable of doing this? These conversations should happen now.
My big fears too are manipulating human behavior. All right. So like this is like a nothing example, but you could substitute any kind of like anti-government or malicious, like, or what the government would view as malicious behavior. But so you have facial recognition, you have GPS tracking on my phone, you have all these things, right? And based on data points, you realize that I go to Target every 6 days, usually on average, and I do this and I buy this and I get that. Now, knowing that I have these habits and I have this kind of like behavioral system, you can start to do things to thwart that behavior, you know? So like, I mean, it's a bad example because I can't think of anything that Target would want to do to hurt my life. But just having those points, you know, Target knows when to optimize sales for things I want to get me to come in maybe earlier. You know, they like that's just the marketing aspect of it. But once the government has all these data points, if they see that you protest once a month and they do this and they do that, maybe when you get pulled over on your way to your next protest, maybe that wasn't a fucking accident. Maybe that was on purpose.
So Dr. O's book, Little Brother, I've talked about it a couple times on this, but it's definitely something. It's a good book. His third book in that series comes out, I think, in October. So the first one's Little Brother, and it uses facial recognition as a big part of this dystopian world where everybody's being tracked, and it's similar to that in the sense that they use facial recognition and tracking software to see where everybody's going, to where they know your patterns, they know what you normally drive. So that way, like if you drive and you take a different route and you're going through a different part of the city or whatever else, then they can pull you over because it's now suspicious behavior, because they know what your normal behavior is. So they're tracking you so well that they know, hey, if you're going 6 miles out of your way, that now becomes suspicious behavior, and they can pull you over and question you based off of that. Well, it's a dystopian book, but it's not. I mean, the technology is there to make this real if we allow it to fully roll out.
Well, and like I said last week. So last week I had mentioned that, you know, with the, you know, protesters being lucky that we didn't enact contact tracing, because all they would need to do to squash some of these protests is just say, well, last week you were at a protest and you were next to 30 people that had COVID, and now you have to self-quarantine. And if you don't, you're in violation of whatever, and we'll arrest you. This week, Apple updated everybody's phones, and if you go to your privacy section, I think it is, you will see that there is a button to switch on that is the contact tracing program that Apple and Google were working on. It says you have to turn it on and give them approval to do it and download an app to do it, but I don't really fucking believe that. I really don't fucking believe that switch means shit right now. You know, like I really honestly don't. You know, so like we joke about the tinfoil hats, you know, but at what time do tinfoil hats just become fashionable? It's really weird. So Electronic Frontier Foundation did a piece, and I heard it on the podcast. Core Dr. O's, he's one of the members, or founding members of EFF, and sits on the board there. And they put out this whole piece that talks about like how to avoid surveillance self-defense while attending a protest. And you know, we talk about tinfoil hat here. What they talk about is next level, but they are as in the know of all of this stuff as anybody. This is what EFF does. They try to protect the rights, the electronic rights, and protect consumers. And the measures at which they talk about of like turning on full disk encryption and password protecting everything on your phones. Even if you're going to go to a protest and you use your fingerprint to unlock your phone or Face ID, to turn all that stuff off, because it's been known that police, if you have biometric unlocking capability, no cop could ever tell you to give you the password. Like, you can keep that to yourself, but they could absolutely use your finger or your face to unlock your phone. At this point, if you're going to be an avid protester, do it 1980s style. Leave that fucking phone at home.
It talks about that's one of the measures it talks about. Like if you bring your phone, don't turn off all biometric stuff. But they recommend you should get a burner phone. Like if you need a phone with you at the protest, you get a burner phone for the protest. Which that's a completely interesting. There's some other like encrypted messaging apps that they recommend, like Signal, in order to hide your messages better. There's also they also talk about then in their facial recognition and tracking issues and making sure that you wear just plain nondescript clothing and cover up all tattoos and body markings that images and scans can later identify you by. Wearing a mask for both COVID and because it is much harder for facial recognition to use it against you.
I saw a story where a woman setting fire to cop cars during the protest was caught by her eyebrows and finger tattoos. So literally they were able to identify this woman off her eyebrows and finger tattoos. Like that's all they need, folks. That's all they need. So
yeah, but it's a weird rule. Even EFF is recommending there's camera apps like Obscura Cam, which when you take a picture, so they've recommended if you're going to be at the protest and taking pictures of people, to be a respectful protester in the sense of don't add their faces to the database that's trackable that they were at the protest. So Obscura Cam app allows you to take pictures and it'll automatically blur all the faces in the background. So that way when you're taking pictures and you're trying to capture these moments of police brutality or whatever you're recording, it'll automatically blur everybody else's faces that is not the target of your video or picture.
Do you need that protest selfie to begin with anyways? Like, do you really need it? Unless you are a journalist, like an actual journalist, what the fuck are you taking pictures for anyways? Like,
so...
like posterity, does
every selfie need to be taken or whatever else? No, but the what's gaining the most attention right now is not necessarily the journalists. It is the people catching the cops slashing tires and catching like.
Well, that's different. That's like trying to catch. But like just random the fact pictures that
everybody's
of crowds.
Cameras out and phones are out is what's catching all of these other incidents that are taking place that are gaining. So I get it.
Yeah,
if
well,
you're going to be there, you're recording it.
If you taking the picture of like the random woman screaming in the face of a cop is not doing that woman any favors.
No.
You get to post it to your Twitter and Instagram and show everybody like that you were there and how involved you are, but you may have just fucked that woman's life all up in all kinds of ways.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know, it's so unusual that these are things that we have to be worried about. But the truth is, our government lags so far behind when it comes to tech that people just, again, we elect people that are asking their grandparents how to unlock their email, and then we expect them to somehow write legislation that puts our consumer interest at best heart and our privacy online. They don't understand it. They can't legislate.
You mean having two presidential nominees that use rotary phones isn't a good idea? Is that what we're saying here? So
the problem is that we're not having these conversations now. But the technologies and things are out there. Things like Stingray that police and law enforcement have capabilities to do. They have devices. I don't know if you know what the Stingray device is, but for the sake, it's essentially a false cell phone tower that law enforcement agencies can set up. Your phone will automatically kind of default to it if you're within a certain range because your phones aren't smart enough to only know what a real cell phone tower is. They're going to connect to whatever the nearest is. So they have false cell phone towers that your phone will route through, and then they gather a ton of data as far as who you are, what you're doing, where you're going, and everything else. And they can set these things up wherever.
It's on a car, right? It's like it's literally on like a car. It's like on a news van, and then it just puts up the news van had the satellite that came out of the van up into the sky. It's the same thing, but a cell phone tower.
Right, and then I can't remember what city it was. off the top of my head, but there was a city that was using it on low-flying aircraft. So they put it on the bottom of low-flying aircraft, and they were just essentially just scanning and collecting data across the entire city.
It's going to get to the point where they just put a bunch of them on drones, and they just have drones flying around everywhere.
And this is the thing. Like right now, it's not that prevalent. It's expensive. It's not that prevalent. It's not widely used by like local law enforcement. It's really federal agencies are using because they have the funding and they have the capability and the tools.
Yeah, but as technology goes up, local law enforcement gets the feds hand-me-downs eventually.
Right, and that's the thing. Like if we're not having these conversations now and talking about, having indiscriminate tools that tracks everybody is a complete violation of privacy. Got it. You want to get access to somebody's data or target somebody because you have a warrant and a probable cause to do so? Okay, I'm not going to continue to argue that. But if you're just going to capture hundreds of thousands of people's data because you have the capability to do so and nobody's legislatively told you that that's a violation, well, this becomes a huge fucking problem. And that's why we're not having these conversations. So right now I don't want to like misrepresent that this is happening in every city and this is a big deal. It's not right now. But it absolutely, in 10 years, could get so cheap and so prevalent that every law enforcement agency, it becomes the norm. That why wouldn't we do this? And if we don't legislate it now, it becomes an issue.
Police vans driving around, scanning, like how police people have police scanners, and people just sit at home and listen to what all the cops are talking about. They're just going to drive around neighborhoods and listen to everything that everybody's talking about, read everybody's tweets or read everybody's text messages. Like any data that gets sent to that cell phone tower is going to come up on their screen or get logged into a database with them. And then all I have to do is search for keywords, search for certain things, names, what have you, and it's all there. And yeah, if you have a warrant for this that was signed off by a judge that had substantial evidence for you to do so, I'm not going to argue with that. But to treat every American as a common criminal until you can prove they are innocent is totally against what this fucking country stands for.
Yeah, so I just, a big part of what we hope is that we just get more people aware of this, because it is something to be discussed now on the future of these technologies, because these aren't the last technologies. These stingrays, facial recognition, these tools that can mass track people at massive scale, they're not so prevalent now, but we are really just a couple of years away from it being capable of being everywhere. And this is just what
find our government's going to do with it. Right. You know what I mean? We're hoping we're not even talking about foreign. We're not even talking about foreign threats.
Yeah, it's
Just take a look at what China does to Hong Kong and picture that here in 5 to 10 years. And that's really what you need to imagine. It's because China is going to do it right now with the quicks to Hong Kong, Taiwan, any dissident that goes against the Chinese Communist government. So whatever they're doing, bank on it being here in 5 to 10.
I mean, are we going to go fuck China? Let's do it.
Fuck China.
All right, let's go. Let's move over to fuck China. And our recent fuck China article and noted that this week Twitter deleted 170,000 accounts, and those 170,000 Twitter accounts deleted this week were backed or some level of Chinese propaganda accounts.
Well, and to be fair, it was mostly, like we said, targeted at Hong Kong. They had 25,000 accounts sharing tweets that praised China's response to COVID and just was giving out all this false propaganda. But then the 150,000 other accounts were just constantly retweeting these things so that it would get on its trending lists and the hashtags and all that. So they were just doing a massive misinformation campaign through Twitter.
Yeah, and just amplifying these messages. I think it said on average, these accounts that got deleted had only 10 followers each, but had over 350,000 tweets each. So yeah, these are just constant.
And most of these tweets were in Chinese, so it was aimed at China, their own people. There was some English tweets, again, mostly just trying to praise the Chinese response to COVID and get us to believe that they were, doing a good job.
Specifically, not just praising the COVID, but specifically addressing that China's response to COVID was far greater than like Taiwan's, as Taiwan was getting all the news about how they handled it so well.
Yeah. They also did shut down, 50,000 Russian and Turkish accounts that were maliciously putting out false information to the United States. These are huge numbers, man. Like huge numbers.
They are, especially when you talk about like what the article said, that those Turkish and Russian accounts accounted for over 40 million tweets, over 40 million messages or tweets sent out on social media. So it's like those are pretty amplified counter messages to what real people are saying. And you would think like, okay, it's just Twitter. Who really cares? Whose opinions really swayed or mattered through Twitter? The answer is a lot.
Well, and a lot of it has to do with hashtags and trends. So you had a big push for the Black Lives Matter hashtag to not let everybody just like hashtag Black Lives Matter. Like they wanted that hashtag to be specifically used for people at protests and keeping people informed as to what's going on with the streets. Like they didn't want Brenda saying, I don't like racists, hashtag Black Lives Matter, because that just floods when they screwed up their own hashtag in the middle of their protests and they did the Blackout Tuesday. And everybody was sharing pictures of just a black screen, but they were all using hashtags Black Lives Matter. So what ended up happening to that hashtag for the day was, instead of people being able to see what was going on with the protests, all they could see was black screens, black squares. Yeah. And it completely ruined their own because of people not understanding the hashtagging and what takes place there. Yeah. So if you have Russians, just even if no one's really reading these tweets, tweeting 40 million, disinformation tweets with hashtags that they want to squash, that's all they need to do, is because now the real message gets lost in this fucking word jumble of fucking tweets and in whatever movement was trying to happen, whatever information you were trying to minimize. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. So we'll, I think, continue to see this for forever. I think this is just a forever and ever thing when we look at foreign meddling into social media, and this is just what's going to happen. I think the tools for Twitter and Facebook to combat it are always going to be challenged once they figure out. I'm sure they found all these accounts because of how much they were tweeting and how few followers, and the fact that they had really no bio and whatever else. Whatever, they're going to create there's probably another 100,000 of them made in the next month to make up for the fact that those got found and deleted.
Yeah, we talk about this. It's really hard for these tech companies to regulate this and figure it out. But at some point, we're going to have to put that responsibility on them somehow. I don't know what the easy answer is, but if they are going to hold this kind of power and this kind of responsibility, they have to be held accountable at some point. We can't just look at them as the tool and, like a hammer's a hammer. You could either pick it up to hammer a nail or you could pick it up to crack someone's fucking skull. Twitter can't just be the hammer. You know what I mean? We gotta be able to regulate who picks it up and what they do with it.
I don't know. I don't. I think the most libertarian answer is that everybody just know what the hell you're reading and who you're following, and do your own level of research and understand. Don't just understand. Take on faith every headline and try to find the counterpoints, whatever else. But the truth is, nobody has time for that.
I was gonna say, do you go in public? Do you ever converse with the average American?
That's the answer, is not to regulate this stuff away and not to put some level of measures in there.
Well, then if we don't want Facebook to spend $1 billion to regulate it, we need to dump $1 trillion into public education and make our society smarter. Like there's only a couple answers, and both are going to take a lot of money. It's just whose money and whose responsibility is it?
I don't put my faith in tech or society. So I think in the end we're all screwed.
That's our doomsday news. That's our doomsday forecast for the week, folks.
No, we got nothing.
We got no good story to end with. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I apologize. Go watch Artemis Fowl. After this.
Yeah, they named that movie after the stench it left in my house.
It's foul like a bird. FOWL.
Whatever. You take it how you want it, pal.
All right. Well, with all that said, that's episode 85. Thanks for listening to us. And as always, we hope that we're a part of conversations. We hope that we continue to bring some entertaining news to you, and also start conversations. And those conversations continue over at the Nerd Cantina /community. So please join the group. And continue to share articles, share your concerns, and share them memes and whatever else is gonna get a little bit of those chuckles out.
Yeah, and spread the word, share the podcast on your local social medias, like whatever you can do to help get us out there. We know that as people are getting back out into the world, they're going to be spending more time in their car. So we're hoping that the podcast downloads increase a little bit. It's been rough out there for our fellow podcasters during this quarantine. Everybody's turned to the Netflix and Hulus and have stopped hitting play on their local podcasts while they're in their car. So every little bit helps, every share helps. It goes, guys, and we appreciate all the support.
All right. Well, thanks again. We'll talk to you next week.
See you, nerds.